Mike Golic Jr. is too with FanDuel and a part of the coverage on TNT. And I got to tell you, Mike, a lot of great feedback from a lot of fan bases about what TNT stepping up to do what you've done this year with the Big 12 coverage. You care, and you can tell, and you're fair with the analysis, but I think it's giving the conference some juice.
Yeah, and listen, I think it's twofold, right? One, it's a conference that has an incredibly compelling product right now. I always joke I sound a lot better as a broadcaster when the games are good. And this year in the Big 12, there's an incredible depth of quality teams, great quarterbacks, all the stuff we knew going into the season. But, I've only worked for TNT for 2 years now, but it became clear pretty quickly this is a company where the success, there's no secret, right? You look at what Inside the NBA was on TNT for years. It's the same care and attention to detail that they put into that product in the NBA for years, now just trained on a different target. And the Big 12 has been a great partner. They've given TNT, Bleacher Report, plenty of access into it. It's allowed us to take fans inside, and it's been a ton of fun to be a part of. We're excited about the rest of the season.
Look, I was fired up. I was at a wedding a couple weeks ago, so I didn't get to see it. But you guys used one of my segments in the Texas Tech pregame, which It really was impressive at the wedding. I'll tell you, people were impressed. But yeah,
there you go. That's how you make a splash at a fall wedding. I was at one last weekend, and you got to try to find a way to stand out. So that's a good way to make sure you walk into the reception head held high.
Let me tell you, Mike, it's a hard thing. I made it through almost the whole day without my wife getting mad at me. It was her brother's wedding, and then USF beat Florida, and I just had to talk to people about it. And I was just reading tweets. And the bride and her father are doing the first dance, and I look across the room, and it's just daggers. Yeah. Daggers. I was like, oh, man.
See, this is my thing with fall weddings, because I understand the conversation we have all the time. And now the fact that it is that close and familial, maybe I can understand some of it. But my whole thought always is, I'm fine with fall weddings. I had a great time at the wedding last week. But especially if the people involved know what you do for a living and are like-minded at all. The wedding I was at, the groom, huge Longhorns fan, and they pointed out, originally when they booked the wedding, it was supposed to be a bye for Texas, and that obviously wasn't the case, although they get a nice win over Sam Houston. I'm fine with a fall wedding, but it's got to come with the understanding that you're going to have some distractive parties involved. I was at a wedding with Michigan fans. They're posted up at the cocktail hour watching that game against Nebraska. And nobody batted an eye. There was a good core of us over there enjoying that moment. So, again, fall wedding's fine, but you have to kind of meet people halfway.
Mike, the Mike Gundy clock we thought was ticking, and it seemed like that clock was ticking faster and faster. And then it came yesterday, the decision. They move on without him. He's a legend. He's Oklahoma State football player, coach. Your thoughts about Mike Gundy after such a legacy there where he played the game, too?
Yeah, great reminder that very few of us, even in places we love and that love us back, get to go out on our own terms in this line of work. And Mike Gundy was no exception. The program had lost its way in the last couple of years. I know as recently as 2023, we saw them in a Big 12 championship game, Ollie Gordon in that great season. But the stretch they had been on, 11 of their last 12 FBS games had been losses, 0 in the conference last year. And this year, starting off not only wounded, but you have the comments in the lead up to the Oregon game that make that even more of an eyesore. And then what happens against Tulsa at home, it just all seemed untenable right now. And Mike Gundy can leave behind a great legacy. What he was a part of as a player and a coach there, all can still matter. But I can understand the school believing, hey, we've got to get a head start on the next direction, because we know in this day and age, when you've got name, image, and likeness, the portal options that so many players have, if you can't present a compelling plan and vision going forward, it's easy for things to bottom out pretty quickly, and you wonder how much that weighed heavy on the decision makers there. So this can be a celebration. Mike Gundy meant a lot of things to Oklahoma State, did so many great things there, but after 21 years, it can still be time for a fresh voice in that locker room, and I'm very curious to see who it's going to be.
Mike, Texas Tech went into Salt Lake City and absolutely drilled Utah, who I still think is a pretty darn good team. I just think that Tech is that much better. How big of a statement was that for Joe McGuire and the guys? Because they've needed this for quite a long time to say, hey, we are really here.
Yeah, a great proof of concept for them, right? Going into a year where they were going to get all this notoriety because of the price tag associated with their roster. And through the early portion of the season had handled business, but had not really been challenged. And this going up against a team that was in their weight class finally, because this game, like I'm with you, I come off thinking very highly of both teams, especially both defenses. This was a 13-10 game in the fourth quarter. It spiraled late because Utah had some chances and mistakes that didn't go their way. And Texas Tech was able to take advantage of them with a backup quarterback, by the way. And I know in getting to cover their game against Kent State, they had a lot of confidence talking to Mac Leftwich, their offensive coordinator, in Will Hammond and what he brought to the table and what he meant to that group behind Baron Morton. And so to get to see that on full display, 163 yards passing, 61 on the ground, and to lead some important scoring drives for them in Barron's stead, I thought was, again, just how Joey McGuire has brought this group of incredibly prominent, well-paid parts together and made them a team. He said that's his superpower. He's there for the culture building. He's there so that when the new players came into the program, they would have guys from different position groups, guys from different parts of that team go out to breakfast together at different spots around Lubbock each week during the offseason to get to know each other, to get to know the community. He empowered leaders on that defense like Skylar Gill-Howard, who came over from Northern Illinois and was a transfer player, but a guy they immediately recognized, hey, he's got great leadership intangibles. Let's put him in a position to lead. And so for the coaches to see that, for players like Baron Morton who are coming back, who had been a part of that team already, to have the humility to allow guys like that a place and a role in that team, not just on the field, but vocally, I think all of that team building intangible stuff has been there present, and that leaks over onto the field when you're in a big time matchup like that, with a place that is as well known for its continuity as Utah is under Kyle Whittingham.
Mike, Cincinnati at Kansas coming up on TNT this Saturday. I saw you had a couple tweets looking at Cincinnati film. Great quarterback there in Brendan Sorsby. Jalen Daniels ought to be a hell of a matchup just with the quarterbacks alone. But what kind of stands out to you about Scott Satterfield's Bearcats and also Lance Leipold and the Jayhawks?
Yeah, I think for Cincinnati, the thing that's always going to jump out to me, I'm a former offensive lineman, and I turned on the tape to watch them because you see the stat going into this game, 0 sacks allowed so far, which is equal parts a Brendan Sorsby conversation, right? He's a great dual threat quarterback. He leads their team in rushing. And he's a guy that was coming back into the season with a lot of juice amongst the sea of really good Big 12 quarterbacks. So sacks are in part a quarterback stat, and that goes a long way. But that group in front of him is well-coached and a very talented group in this conference. Gavin Gerhardt is a 3-time captain. There have only been 4 3-time captains in the history of Cincinnati football, and 2 are on this team. They rave about his leadership ability. We got to talk to their coaching staff today about how cerebral he is, about how much he helps his quarterback in setting the protections and getting to everything lined up front. And so when you've got that foundation up front, which no surprise, Scott Satterfield comes from that App State lineage where they're well known for being built up front, built on that foundation of the offensive line, it makes it easier to spread it around to a bunch of really compelling weapons that they've got on the offense and the skill position group, wide receivers from the transfer portal, their tight end Joe Royer, who's a former Ohio State transfer, who's an NFL guy, a Sunday guy. So they've got all the parts there. And then defensively, this is a group that is now in the last season into this season, playing that 3-3-5, that Iowa State defense that's been so popular among the rest of the conference here, trying to go out here and play good complementary football. Played a really close game against Nebraska early in the season. And now is a great challenge going on the road to a Kansas program that when Jalen Daniels has been healthy and upright, man, this is an exciting football team. Lance Leipold has gotten universal buy-in across a program that was known traditionally as a basketball school for so long. I remember the excitement back in the day when Les Miles took over there, post LSU, and everyone saw the name and all that. And then they go and hire this coach from Buffalo in his wake who comes over and really has a vision for what they can be. This exciting offense that we know when Andy Kotelnicki, their coordinator, left to go to Penn State, people wondered how it was going to look. Lo and behold, still good there. And now this year playing some really great defense. I think 11 or 12 sacks on the season already up front. So they played and lost a really close game to a really good Missouri team too. So both of these teams have played someone strong in their out-of-conference matchups, tested themselves early, and now enter Big 12 play. I think in a really interesting position. We know, again, Texas Tech and Utah probably going to get the top billing. But in that dark horse group of teams that could potentially step up, certainly last year's champion Arizona State stands out. But I think these two teams are both well positioned to be within striking distance when it's all said and done of earning that trip to Dallas.
When we were at Big 12 Media Day, just a quick note on what you said about Cincinnati and offensive line. Scott Satterfield, they were being slept on a little bit. We still don't know the end result, but he had a glimmer in his eye when he talked about his offensive line. He really liked them back then and had a reason to.
Yeah, no, and I think Nick Cardwell, their offensive line coach, is a guy that at every stop along the way has been really consistent. And I think in college football and in NFL football, quite honestly, there are so few difference makers coaching that position. And you look on Sundays at what you got. Perfect example, Monday Night Football. The Detroit Lions have one in Hank Fraley, former NFL offensive lineman himself, who took a unit there that was replacing Frank Ragnow, who was a difference-making culture setter, great player at center. They got a second-year player at left guard, a first-year player at right guard, and they went out there and they paved a way for that running back room against a really good Baltimore Ravens program. And so coaching matters at these spots. And when you look up and see, all right, you're getting ready for each season, and I look and see Nick Cardwell coaching the offensive line in Cincinnati, I go, okay, I know what to expect with that group. And I turn on the tape and see that reflected, and it's really exciting to watch.
Arizona State and TCU play on Friday night. You mentioned Arizona State. TCU, they've got some good vibes going themselves. After last week, winning the last Iron Skillet, what do you think about them and where they're headed and what you still need to see from them?
Boy, I tell you what, Josh Hoover could sling that thing. Like in a conference of quarterbacks that we talk about, very few going to sit. I think him and Sawyer Robertson right now at the top of the conference in terms of that kind of production. And when you got a guy who can put the ball in those places, you're always going to have a great chance to go out and be successful. I understand going back to the Iron Skillet game, SMU, that defense, not quite what they were in 2024 and not presenting the same challenge. But I still think TCU's look really good to start the season. It's the perfect kind of challenge because right now they're getting an ASU team that has found themselves again. Like the second half of that Mississippi State game, I get it ended in a loss. But you talk to Kenny Dillingham and the rest of that staff, and they believe, hey, 17-play, 95-yard drive that ended in a field goal, multi-play drive before that was 90-plus. We know who we are on the ground right now. You don't have Cam Scatterbill anymore, but you look at that backfield, Kanye Udo, Raleek Brown, Tyson Brown when he was healthy, like that's a group and a three-headed monster that offered them a lot on the backfield before you get to a guy like Jordan Tyson who, hey, Jeremiah Smith's maybe the best player in college football and certainly the best receiver. Jordan Tyson might be the first wide receiver taken in the draft this year. He's that good. And so they're deep with weapons there. Sam Levitt's a really potent threat on the ground in addition in the air. So they're catching Arizona State at a time where I think they're rounding into form. And so it's a great chance for TCU getting into conference play here to also get a real good look at how high this can fly for them. And I believe they're very capable.
So, Mike, there's a lot of other great games around the country this weekend, like Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, Penn State, Oregon. I was wondering which game are you most intrigued by, but there's another one that's not quite ranked versus ranked, but I know you'll be eyeing. That's you're Irish traveling to Fayetteville to take on the Razorbacks and Taylon Green and company. I was just wondering how you felt about that one as well.
Yeah, I'll work backwards to forwards on that one. For Notre Dame and Taylon Green, great opportunity. I'm curious to see who's healthy for the Irish in the secondary. Last game, you were down your best defensive player in star cornerback Leonard Moore, your sophomore All-American candidate, and your veteran transfer at nickelback in former Alabama defensive back Devontae Smith. So both of those meant you had two true freshmen and a redshirt freshman starting at pivotal positions in that secondary. And who is up and available for this game going to go a long way because the pass rush, the four-man rush just hasn't been there so far. And for Taylon Green, quarterback, an incredible athlete. Sam Pittman has a ton of confidence in him. They go as he goes on offense. But defensively, it looks like it's going to be hard for anyone to get stops in this game. The Arkansas defense certainly been tough sledding. And Notre Dame offensively, CJ Carr's best pure passer I've seen in South Bend maybe since Jimmy Clausen. He's looked sensational and unflappable so far. And that running back tandem, that two-headed monster of Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, I'd put up there against any running back group in college football. So great opportunity for them. Just curious who's actually suited up and healthy on the field for Notre Dame defensively. As far as the rest of the weekend, Oregon and Penn State for me. What's it going to be for Penn State this year? The offense hasn't looked as explosive in taking that next step as people wanted, even with the overhaul of transfer receivers to offset the loss of Tyler Warren at tight end. Can Drew Aller take that next step to be what Penn State fans always wanted him to be when he was backing up Sean Clifford? Or is it going to be more of what we saw last year? Defensively, they know what they can do. And that's what excites me on the other side, because Dante Moore, I know they have not been challenged yet. They ran over Oklahoma State. They got to win in a rivalry game against Oregon State, but those teams were not as talented as Oregon, and everyone knew it. Dante Moore looks the part, man. Dante Moore looks like a special, special player, the one we always thought he was going to be during the recruiting process. The gifts he has, combined with the offensive line in front of him, the way that Will Stein's called offense since he showed up there in Eugene, I think this is a team that, if they go into Happy Valley this weekend and get the kind of win I think they're capable of, we're going to be talking about a lot more frequently on the national level for being one of those teams ready like they were last year to compete for a national championship.
Mike, when we made some of our picks, and that was one of the games, of course, I close my eyes, I think of Oregon, I think of nothing but speed. Not that they don't have physicality. I think about Penn State with those black cleats and the way they look. But they have athleticism and great speed. And that's something, though, when I close my eyes, that's what I still think about either program. And that's probably unfair about Penn State, isn't it?
No, I mean, I think for both teams, like, there is still ties to the identities that have always existed there. And for Penn State, I was just talking to Devin Still this morning, the former defensive tackle from Penn State, and the through line of great defensive products on that side of the ball, the cornerback play that you usually get there, linebacker, all that stuff, in addition to an offense that's going to have big guys up front that can do their thing and guys in that backfield, Katron Allen and company. I think still some of those things are true. It's more about the ceiling now for Penn State in this day and age. For Oregon on the other side, the only thing I push back, there's speed to burn. That's a group of bullies up front. Like, going back to when Mario Cristobal was there, Oregon has become one of the premier trench teams on both sides of the ball in college football. Dan Lanning brought that recruiting ability and defensive structure, the likes of which we saw in Athens for years. He's got that Kirby Smart about him. But I also think offensively, that's a line Joe Moore Award folks are going to be looking out for that group to see how they perform against a really quality group, Zane Duran and the rest of that defensive front, because I think they've got that potential. They are built to push people around up front.
Mike, last question for me, and the most important one. Which one did you like better, the Oreo Reese's or the Reese's Oreo?
Yeah, great question. I was more of a fan, and it surprised me, of the Oreo Reese's. I thought the Reese's Oreo was going to win it going away from me. I love the Oreo stuff, and I figured the flavor palette and the pairing there was tailor-made for that one. But the cookie crunch inside the Reese's peanut butter cup really set it apart. I'm a big textural eater, and that one hit the nail on the head. Yeah,
I was with you. I had them at the same time too. Like, I play the fat boy game well, okay? I don't mess around. I'm not new to this. You gotta separate together all of it. But I agree with you.
Yeah, I didn't quite go a little bit of ginger in between to palate cleanse, but I was trying to go about it the same way. The scientific method is honored and appreciated in this house, and clearly in yours as well.
Yeah. I love the logo on your shirt. I have a ton of Roback type shirts and sweats and whatever. I saw that on your chest. It's a great brand, isn't it? Very comfortable. Mike, we appreciate your time as always today.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Mike Golic Jr., TNT, also FanDuel with us.